be on the Queen Mary, which was to go from New York to Southampton. In the first run, see, the war was over the first, and they didn't know it was going to be over, I guess. I mean, it was over very unexpectedly. The German war, not the Japanese war, not the war in the Pacific, but the war in Europe was over May 1st, and on May 5th, they held the Queen up for 5 days. And so instead of going on to the Queen May 1st, I went up and graduated with my class. They were just graduating, and then I came down and went aboard the ship, and we went over. And what they were trying to do with the Queen Mary was to have it go for the first time and make some kind of a record go straight, because they had to go 6 minutes in one direction, and then they would have to turn another 6 minutes to avoid the submarines that took 7 minutes to set up. And so they hadn't gone across like that, and this was the first chance, and they wanted them to see how fast they could go and make a record. So, and they did. But we were loaded with GIs. I got a lot of pictures in my slides, not a lot, but I have some pictures in the slides showing thousands of men on the Queen Mary and just a handful of girls. Yeah. And that's where we began to get spoiled right from the beginning. Then we went to Ireland, to Dublin, and then we went down to London we went down to London in the dark at night. And London was still blacked out. We couldn't have any flashlights, and you couldn't smoke a cigarette or anything, because the Germans were still lopping shells into London. You know, there were some units that just wouldn't quit, and we hadn't gotten to them yet. And so then we weren't in London very long. I wanted very much to go in the Red Cross, and I found, after I'd gotten out of the University of Wyoming and was working, I found that I couldn't get in the Red Cross unless I had a college degree. Why they needed college degree people to hand out coffee and donuts, I don't know, but that's the group I wanted to be in, the Clubmobile. That was kind of the glamour outfit of the Red Cross, the Clubmobile. Okay. We drove big 6x6s. I can show you a picture. Big, huge trucks that had coffee machines in them, two of them, and then donuts. They made donuts too. And although when I got to using one overseas, the French girls made donuts for us, so I never got into the donut making business. But anyway, had to go to college, and they took people who had been in entertainment. There were a lot of Hollywood people in the Red Cross, women. And then there was, then they wanted people who'd had some kind of recreation experience. I was assigned to Marseille. Oh, well, while we were in Washington, we were trained to drive these big trucks, and we also had to learn all the protocol and all that kind of stuff, you know. And so then when we got to Paris, we had a refresher course in truck driving, and then we got sent down to Marseille. And there in Marseille, our job was to take coffee and donuts. The Red Cross had discovered that the coffee and donuts were symbolic of home to the boys. And they, of course, so would have apple pie have been, and so on, but you couldn't make that. I mean, this was the easiest thing to do that would be quick and easy to dispense in a truck like this. And so they call these Clubmobiles. And we had record players, and we would drive out. We would load up with coffee and get the coffee made and get the donuts, and load up with them, and then we had took barrels of donuts, and then drove out to staging areas where there were just miles of tents forever. And these were taking the boys out of Europe who'd been fighting and sending them to Japan because they didn't have enough points to go home. A lot of them had been in the Battle of the Bulge and had been through terrible times. And they didn't have enough points, and they'd read about Japan and what terrible things were going on over in the Pacific. And of course, the morale was just awful. I mean, they I don't know how they took it, but they knew that's what they had to do until they got enough points, and then they could go home. So we would drive out to these staging areas, and as soon as they'd hear the trucks coming, they would run and line up, just miles of them, with their canteens. And they just wanted to hear us speak Americanese. They wanted to hear English spoken by an American girl. They didn't want to hear a British accent. They didn't want to hear a French accent. And so they really were great to us. And they'd come up and with their canteens, or where are you from, honey? I mean, that was always what they said. And then we'd tell them, and then they'd yell. Somebody down the line would yell if you said you were from Texas. We played the Yellow Rose of Texas. Was one great hit. Some of those other songs in those days were popular with the guys. And then they'd get their coffee and their donut, and they'd go way back to the end of the line, hoping that by the time that they would be able to get another one before we left. I hope we'd have some left by the time the line got through. Well, it rarely did, but anyway. And that was what we did in Marseille for quite a while. And then, well, I had to apply to get into a different service, and I decided to go into hospital because I thought that would be a little more rewarding than just club. I mean, I felt that I wanted to be with the American soldiers that were still in Germany, if I could get to Germany. And did I talk about Germany?
Not very much.
And I wanted to be sure that I was doing something effective, and so I applied to hospital, and I got in, and I got a transfer up to Karlsruhe. First, we had to go to Wiesbaden to go through a week of orientation and training. And while I was there, did I talk about Richard Sherman?
In this life that we're living, with all its twists and turns, it's so easy to lose our way, forget the lessons that we learned. But the road that leads us on will always bring us back. Once you walked in your own trail and stepped in your own tracks. The truth is a word, but it's so often hard to find. Searching through the mirrors offered up by time, to face it on your own and to look it in the eye. Well, take all you got to give, but ain't it worth the try? Follow your heart, that's where to begin. Chase down the dreams and go dancing with the wind. Listen to the love that you find along the way. Let your light shine in and sing your life away. Listen to the song of the earth as she turns. Bask in the life of the sun as she burns. Seek out the power in your own mind's eye. Listen to your heart, it'll teach you by and by. Follow your heart, that's where to begin. Chase down those dreams and go dancing with the wind. Listen to the love that you find along the way. Let your light shine in and sing your life away. Follow your heart, that's where to begin. Chase down the dreams and go dancing with the wind. Listen to the love that you find along the way. Let your light shine in and sing your life away. Sing your life away, oh, sing your life away. Let your light shine in and sing your life away. Sing your life away, oh, sing your life away. Let your light shine in and sing your life
I'm very glad I had this experience, and I don't know, you know, I think for the boys that, well, we did what we could, and it was more that we got out of what we got out of it than what they did, probably. Although I know there were some Red Cross girls that were sent over to France with the boys that went from England over the North Sea in the invasion. There was a clubmobile or two that went over on the invasion on boats, and there were some girls who were killed. And yeah, they during the war they really were on the line, some of them. And that's why I wanted clubmobile too, because I wanted to get right up close, you know. I wanted to be in on all the action.